You know that feeling when you're sitting in a perfectly quiet house, right? Like the TV is off, the dog is finally asleep, and you're just waiting for a really important phone call.
Oh yeah, just staring at the screen.
Exactly, just staring. And the second the phone rings, you take a breath, you swipe the screen, and the exact moment you say hello, utter chaos erupts.
It's like a bomb goes off. The dog barks, kids start screaming, someone in the next room turns on a blender.
Yes. It is maddening. You're waving your hands around frantically, pointing at the phone, wondering why the universe waits for that exact moment to just unleash all the noise.
Well, it feels incredibly personal in that moment. I mean, you're trying to protect this tiny little communication bubble,
Yeah.
and your environment completely rebels. Most people just, write it off as a frustrating quirk of living with others or maybe just really bad luck.
But today, we're taking a deep dive into this bizarre universal phenomenon using a completely different lens. We're looking at excerpts from this fascinating piece called The Hydraulic Surge of the Human Grid.
Right. And specifically, we're going to focus on a section titled Episode 1, The Pressure Burst. It features this great dialogue between two characters, one named Helios and the other known as the Mad Philosopher.
Right, so our mission for this deep dive is to unpack this shared annoyance using their incredibly unique framework of, well, mental plumbing. We want to help you understand the hidden, invisible forces at play in your environment when you simply open your mouth to speak. So, okay, let's unpack this. We really have to look at the environment before the call even happens. The text paints a very specific picture of the buildup.
Yeah, Helios is detailing a 30-minute wait for one specific hello. He describes the room as being dead quiet, but he adds this crucial modifier.
Oh, right, the concrete floor detail.
Exactly. He doesn't just say you could hear a pin drop, he says you could hear a pin drop on a concrete floor. That distinction changes the entire texture of the silence.
It completely shifts the mood. Like a carpeted silence feels soft, insulated, maybe relaxing, but a concrete silence is hard. It's resonant.
Yeah, it's a silence that feels like it has actual physical weight to it. And the sensory imagery used here is incredibly vivid. You get the sound of a wrench hitting a metal pipe, a loud clang. You hear the hiss of a high-pressure valve opening.
He even likens himself to a master plumber watching a gauge, right? With his tools ready and his mind right.
Which is a profound way to conceptualize the act of waiting in a quiet room. I mean, using industrial plumbing imagery, wrenches, metal pipes, high-pressure valves, it forces you to reconsider the space you're in.
You aren't just sitting passively in a living room.
Right. You're existing within a dynamic, pressurized system. The author elevates this mundane domestic scenario into a high-stakes mechanical operation.
It honestly reminds me of the environment inside a submarine deep underwater. Like if you're sitting in a submarine, the interior might be completely quiet, but it is not a relaxed quiet.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, because it's a highly pressurized quiet. There are millions of gallons of ocean pressing down on the hull, and you're acutely aware of the pressure differential between the inside of that metal tube and the outside world.
The quiet is a physical weight.
Exactly. And that is exactly what Helios is experiencing. He's doing the active work of holding back the noise, watching the needle on the gauge sit in the red zone.
And taking that submarine analogy a step further, the structural integrity of that submarine requires constant equilibrium. In Helios's living room, he is providing that equilibrium.
He's the one holding it together.
Exactly. The psychological tension of his anticipation becomes a structural component of the room's atmosphere. He is in a state of high alert, and that physical and mental rigidity radiates outward. The people and animals in that shared space subconsciously adapt to that rigid baseline.
And then the baseline just breaks, the 30-minute wait is over, the phone rings, Helios clicks accept, and the instant his voice hits the air, everything goes wrong.
The text actually describes it as a catastrophic system failure. The phrase used is that the main line snapped.
Accompanied by a sudden whoosh of air and noise.
Right, the tension doesn't just dissipate quietly, it violently ruptures. Helios observes that suddenly everyone has a leak they need fixed, or a song they need to sing.
The examples are so chaotic, but so relatable. He says the kids are running like they just found out the house is on fire.
And the person in the other room is suddenly talking louder than a 100-watt amp.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's instantaneous. And Helios has this profound realization standing in the middle of it. He says his voice didn't just start a conversation. It blew the seals off the whole building.
It's a very striking image.
It is, but I have to push back on the fundamental premise here for a second. I think anyone listening might be wondering if this is just plain old coincidence, or maybe confirmation bias.
Oh, you mean like it was just bad timing?
Exactly.
Right.
Is it
Yeah.
possible the kids and the roommate were already being loud, and Helios only noticed it because he was suddenly on the phone and desperately needed them to be quiet? We really only hyperfixate on distractions when we need to focus.
A lot of people definitely rationalize the experience exactly that way. They blame bad timing. However, the logic of the text and even behavioral science points in a different direction.
Really?
Yeah, the author deliberately positions this not as a coincidence, but as a direct causal event. The text explicitly links his voice to the eruption.
So the main line snapped because his voice hit the air.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not that he just noticed the noise. His voice was the literal catalyst that destroyed the environmental equilibrium. It's a total system failure.
Wait, so by speaking, he actively triggered the 100-watt amp and the kids running from the imaginary fire.
If we look at the acoustics of human environments, it actually makes perfect sense. Humans, as social creatures, we constantly engage in acoustic monitoring.
We're subconsciously reading the room.
Right, we read the tension and the noise baseline of a space. When someone is intensely quiet, when they are radiating that submarine-level tension, the rest of the household senses that heavy air and unconsciously mirrors it.
And the moment that person breaks the silence, they break the tension.
Yes. It acts as a psychological permission slip to the rest of the group.
That is a massive shift in perspective. You weren't a victim of bad timing. You are the one who snapped the main line.
You're the catalyst.
But how does simply saying hello into a phone cause a roommate in another room to start yelling? This brings us to the second character in the source text, the mad philosopher who steps in to diagnose this invisible physics. Here's where it gets really interesting.
What's fascinating here is how the mad philosopher frames this automatic behavioral response. He listens to Helios talk about blowing the seals off the building, and he calls it a hydraulic surge of the human spirit.
A hydraulic surge of the human spirit. It is such a strange, powerful phrase.
It completely bridges the mechanical metaphor with human psychology. It forces us to look at the mechanics of silence.
Right.
The mad philosopher explains that when you stay quiet in that heightened state, you are the regulator. You are actively holding the pressure for the entire room.
But the mechanics of speaking dictate that when you open that valve, the highly pressurized energy has to go somewhere. You cannot release energy into a closed system without displacement.
Which introduces the most brilliant concept in the entire piece, the overflow tanks.
Yes.
The mad philosopher explains that the people around you, your kids, your roommate, your dog, in this plumbing system of the mind, they are the overflow tanks.
In physical plumbing, an overflow tank is a safety mechanism, right? Like when pressure drops or spikes unexpectedly in the main line, water rushes into the overflow tank to prevent the entire system from bursting.
Exactly, and it is an automatic, thoughtless process. The mad philosopher applies this directly to the people in the house, noting that they do not even know they were doing it.
So when Helios speaks, when he opens his valve, he drops the pressure in his part of the room. The mad philosopher says he does this because he claimed a piece of the atmosphere.
Right. He literally took up space in the room's energy grid by projecting his voice. And because he claimed that atmosphere and dropped the ambient tension, those human overflow tanks instinctively react.
They start pumping noise just to level the system back out.
Yes. They feel the sudden vacuum, their sudden drop in pressure that was anchoring the room, and their acoustic mirroring instincts kick in to fill the void.
So they aren't consciously deciding to be loud.
No, not at all. Their nervous systems are registering a sudden deficit in the room's energy, and they compensate. They start screaming, they talk loudly, they run around.
Not because they're malicious. Not because they are conspiring to ruin your phone call.
Which changes the entire emotional dynamic of the household. We usually interpret these interruptions as personal attacks, getting angry and thinking, why are you doing this to me right now?
Oh, absolutely. I've thought that so many times.
But the mad philosopher's diagnosis is that they aren't doing it to you. They're doing it because of you. You created an atmospheric shift.
You left a vacuum when you opened your valve, and the tanks simply pump noise to compensate. They don't even know they're doing it.
Right.
When you realize it is a completely unconscious reaction, it's really humbling. The regulator opened the valve, the pressure dropped, and boom, everybody's personal overflow tank kicks in to fill the void. We are deeply connected to the acoustic pressure of everyone around us.
We really are.
But, the text doesn't just leave us stranded in a noisy room with this diagnosis. It gives us a practical resolution. Helios has an ultimate realization about how to navigate this human grid without being overwhelmed by the noise.
Well, the mad philosopher first offers a very stern warning. He tells Helios that he is a master engineer operating a human grid. And the warning is that if you do not know how to throttle the valve, the noise will drown out the signal every single time.
Throttling the valve. So, what does this all mean? How does that mechanical action translate to human behavior?
Think about throttling a physical valve. You don't just yank the handle down or rip it open all at once. You open it slowly. You carefully manage the release of pressure so this system can adjust without blowing the seals. If you yank it open, like abruptly yelling hello into a dead quiet room, you get the surge.
You get the 100-watt amp and the kids running from the fire. So, in a practical sense, throttling the valve means easing the pressure off before you speak.
Exactly.
Maybe instead of answering the phone from a dead, tense silence, you give a visual or auditory pre-signal. You sigh, you shuffle your chair, maybe you start walking toward the hallway to establish a new acoustic zone before you hit accept.
You give the overflow tanks a few seconds to adjust to the changing pressure rather than shocking the system. You manage the flow of energy.
And that leads directly to Helios's big takeaway. He realizes it's about the flow. You can't get mad at the water for flowing when you're the one who turned the faucet.
There is an incredible sense of empowerment in that realization. Helios shifts from being a victim of his noisy house to recognizing his role as a master engineer.
He is the one controlling the direction of the flow. You can't be mad at the water for doing what water does. Kids are going to be loud. Dogs are going to bark. That is just their nature.
The goal here, as Helios states, is mixing the plumbing of the pipes with the plumbing of the mind. Knowledge of this system is only valuable when it's applied. We cannot change the fundamental nature of the people around us.
We can't stop the water from flowing.
Exactly. But we have total control over how we interact with the system. We can change how we open our own valve.
So instead of expecting the room to just hold that rigid concrete silence forever, you anticipate the surge. You know that when you answer the phone, the overflow tanks are going to react to the vacuum.
Right, you plan for it.
You plan for it by throttling the valve. You manage the environment rather than letting the environment manage you.
And the text offers one final, really blunt piece of advice. For those moments when you simply cannot manage the surge. Helios says if you can't handle the pressure, get out of the mechanical room.
Oh, wow. If you cannot manage the dynamics of the grid, remove yourself from it entirely.
Exactly. You can't stand in the middle of the mechanical room, yank open a high-pressure valve, and then complain that it is loud. It requires taking responsibility for your place in the acoustic environment.
It really is a brilliant way to reframe a daily frustration. Let's briefly recap the journey we just took through this human grid. We started in that heavy, pressurized tension of a perfectly quiet room, the sensation of a pin dropping on a concrete floor.
Right, and we explored how holding that silence turns you into a regulator for the entire space.
Then, we examined the explosive hydraulic surge that happens the moment you click accept and speak. The main line snaps, and your voice blows the seals off the building.
From there, the mad philosopher provided the diagnosis. The resulting chaos isn't a coincidence, and it isn't malicious. It's the automatic subconscious response of the overflowed tanks in our environment.
Because we claimed a piece of the atmosphere and dropped the tension, the people around us instinctively pump noise to level the system back out.
And finally, we arrived at the empowerment of the master engineer. We realized we cannot get mad at the water for flowing when we turn the faucet.
We have to learn to throttle the valve, easing into the acoustic shift rather than shocking the room. So the next time you are sitting in your house waiting for that incredibly important call, and the moment you answer, your entire household erupts into absolute chaos, don't get mad at the water.
Take a breath. Remember that you are the master engineer. And realize that you just blew the seals off the building by opening your valve.
It is just the physics of the human grid.
Understanding the mechanics of the mind gives you the power to navigate the noise rather than simply suffering through it.
It absolutely does. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. Something that builds on this source material, but takes it in a slightly different direction.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
The text beautifully explains what happens to the surrounding environment. The overflow tanks when you open the valve and release your pressure into the room. It displaces energy and causes an external surge.
Right, explodes outward.
But consider the inverse. Think about the internal structural integrity of the regulator. If opening the valve disrupts the whole external system, what happens to the internal system of the person if they choose to hold that silence and never open the valve at all?
Oh, wow.
If you just sit there absorbing the tension, keeping the submarine sinking deeper and deeper into the quiet, holding back all that pressure eventually, something has to give. You can only hold the silence for so long before the pipes inside start to crack. You are sitting in a perfectly quiet house waiting.